Hi everybody, I am live and I'm going to start the poll. So I'm glad that we have one person waiting. And as you can see, my RV is messy behind me, but I didn't have time to clean it up this morning before I jumped on the live. So we're just going to go with it. Um, and that's just how we're going to roll today. And what we're talking about today is that fire is more than just money. And so, let's see, we've got the pinned comment there, and we've got the poll started. So we will give it a moment or two for more people to come in, but we are going to really get started. And thank you, whoever's here and gave me a like, because I'm trying to get as many likes on these lives as I can. So we're talking about the other parts of fire other than just the numbers, because a lot of people, oh, thanks, we got 2 viewers now, this is good. A lot of people think that fire is all about the numbers. Like, for me, it's about my savings rate. That's how I got to fire. But it's also about, oh, hi, Simply Debbie Sue and Shadow Scout Swede. Thank you both for being here. Shadow, I saw that you had a video the other day, and oh, thank you so much, Shadow. I have not had a chance to go and watch that one yet. And Lisa is here. So Lisa, thank you for doing something on, what is that, SMH, because I have SMH. So, and since I bought SMH, here's my thing, Lisa, and I know I'm going off topic from my live, but I'll get back to the topic of live here. Whenever I buy a stock, it tanks. So you do not want to ever buy a stock right after I buy it. I have that kiss of death, on the stocks or ETFs that I buy. And so anyway, I bought SMH on somebody's recommendation, and sure enough, it didn't do anything for a good year. I mean, it just, and somebody, oh, you should do SMH. Well, I did. And so I just hold on to things, that's how I roll with real estate and with stocks. I just hold on to things. And so, what if I told you all that, what you thought about financial independence is all wrong, right? What if we look at the other sides of financial independence and retiring early? Yes, you have to have some amount of money. We're not going to say that you can just retire with nothing. Although people do it, don't get me wrong. Some people live off the land. And if you can live off the land, you could retire at 30. Some people don't want to do that. Different people want different levels of lifestyle in retirement. For me, it's very simple. I have a very simple lifestyle. I like to ride my motorcycle. I like to fish. Eventually, as I increase my cash flow, I'm going to start taking more trips or cruises or traveling to Europe, more things that cost more money. However, my assets have to pay for my liabilities. That's how I am. But we're going to talk today about not chasing the numbers, but finding true wealth. And what is true wealth? Because that's different for everybody. And so, yeah, Lisa, I tell you, I just have the kiss of death on stocks. That's who I am. And I embrace that, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to try and move my camera here just a little bit so that I can see more of what it is I'm trying to see here on my computer. And get myself together here, people. I'm sorry, I'm sort of pulling double duty in that my puppy is here. I hope that we make it through the whole live, because if my puppy says the live is over, the live is over. And so that's how we're going to roll today. So anyway, welcome to Fire with Dr. Ninja Turtle. This is my regular live that I do every Friday at 10:15 a.m. because I want consistency. and I want to be consistent in my deliveries of lives. I don't want to just sort of randomly go live, or some days I make it, some days I don't. And I will tell you, and Tiger says, yeah, so I have a new pet duck. I'm going off script again. That's how today's live is going to go. We're going to get to some of these topics and some we're not going to get to. But we have adopted, if you've seen any of my shorts this week, a pet duck out here at the lake. And my dog and the duck love each other. And so we didn't see the pet duck this morning when we went outside, but normally he's out there every morning at the boat ramp, which I'm only like 100 feet from the boat ramp. I'm not that far away from the edge of the lake. And the duck is at the boat ramp and he follows us back to the RV. And then my dog is going crazy because the duck is outside the RV and he's quacking. And my dog wants to get back to him. And so, anyway, we're going to have Ducktober. It's not going to be Locktober or Vlogtober. It's going to be Ducktober with me and my shorts this month. So, sorry everybody, back to what it is that we're talking about, which is that fire is more than just the numbers, right? There has to be a mindset shift if you're going to retire early. Retiring early, a lot of people think, well, if I hit this number or if I hit this age, then I'm going to be able to retire early. People like me have toxic jobs and the straw breaks the camel's back and we say, that's it, we're done. Now, I was lucky in that at the time that the straw broke the camel's back, I was 58 and a half, and a little over 58 and a half, just a little bit over. But what that means for the federal government is that you can take delayed retirement, not collect your pension until you're 60, but still keep your health care. Now, what did that look like? Just so everybody knows this process, because I did not know this process until the day I quit. I went to lunch with a friend who had just quit his federal government job, and I told him, I said, I quit. I put in my resignation letter. He said, don't do that. He said, don't tell them that you want immediate retirement. He said, tell them that you want delayed retirement. And then my friend explained to me what this is. If you're within a year and a half of 60 years old, you can pay your own health care. You pay your part of your health care plus the federal government's part of your health care for no more than a year and a half, and you can keep your health care for the rest of your life. And so what I did was I had to pay $700 a month, maybe even $800, but somewhere between $700 and $800 a month for health care for a year and a half. So it came out to about $8,000, something like that. And that provided me with health care very inexpensively for the rest of my life. That is an opportunity that I did not know about on the day that I put in my resignation letter. So I was just blessed that I ran into this friend that told me how to do this. And so I share that with people because a lot of federal employees do not know that this is an option. Because if you quit too early, you lose your health care. And health care is an expensive thing. My health care is about $60 a month now. And I have a high deductible health care plan, which gives me an HSA. So I invest my health care dollars today so that they are growing. Plus, the insurance company that I'm with, which is part of the Postal Service. So I am an associate postal employee. That's how that insurance works. And they put in $100 a month towards my investments. The insurance company puts in $1,200 a year towards my investments. Now, I can only do that until I turn 65. So I was late to the party, but I'm maxing it out every year that I can do it. And so we're doing pretty good. We're at 25, 30,000 now in our HSA. So let's go back to the topic today because we are very distracted today. Well, hi Q, I am so glad that you made it. I am so distracted because I have my puppy with me. And so when my puppy says the live is over, the live is over. But so far, he's really been really, really good. He's sleeping right behind me on a recliner. So we're talking about FIRE, where most people think that financial independence, retire early, is all about the dollars. And that's a big component of it, depending on how much you think you need in order to spend in your retirement. I need very little money, so for me to retire early was good. But we're going to talk about some of the other things about wealth that are not talked about and are part of the FIRE movement. And so let's talk about mindset shifts, because I've gotten myself off track. I've talked about our pet duck here at the lake. I've talked about my ETF, SMH, that when I buy stocks, they don't do anything. That's why I'm the worst stock picker ever. Whatever I invest in, it's going nowhere for a long time. I mean, eventually someday I'll make money, but that's not our topic for today. So we're talking about a mindset shift in early retirement. And what that means is that it's the psychology of financial independence. Some people think that when they leave their jobs, they are leaving their title. I was a systems engineer with the federal government, and I managed the database for the federal court that I worked in. And I had all the data for the court in my database. And so the public accesses my database, the court staff access my database. The only time I could work on the database was at 3 a.m. in the morning. And so I would tell my boss, I have to take the database down from 3 a.m. until 4 a.m. and have it back up and running by 6 a.m. that morning. And so that was the kind of job that I had. It was that high pressure. But that was my title, was systems engineer. Now, because it was a toxic workplace, I was given a lot of other duties as assigned. That's how the job descriptions read in the federal government, plus other duties as assigned. So they assigned me all the jobs that nobody else wanted to do. And I did them because I wanted that pension. I didn't say, oh, this is beneath me, I quit. I said, I don't care what you throw at me trying to force me to quit, I am not going to quit. Plus, I still had to manage that database. So, my point is, I was a systems administrator on the outside of the door to my office. And a lot of people love their title. Now, for me, that wasn't so much my title as it was something I was leaving. So you don't want to think of what you're running away from when you hit financial independence. You want to have a mindset shift and think about where your life is going. And that's what we're going to talk more about in this live. And so Q says it's the same. I was going to call you Sophie. Q says it's the same at me and Mrs. Paula. Q says it's the same at her job, and it is for a lot of us that, it's not so much, what we do or our title, but I run into a lot of retired people who were executives, and they were the senior vice president of this or that, and they had a lot of power. And so for them to have no power and not a whole staff working under them, that's a big thing for them. And so it's hard for them to say, well, I have nobody. And so Q says that she talks to angry patients every day, and nobody wants to do that. That is true. I mean, the only time I would hear from people on my job was when my database wasn't working correctly. And then it was an emergency. And so one of the other parts to my job is that the court gave me a cell phone, the court gave me a laptop, and I was expected to be on my email every weekend, basically 24/7. I was expected to have my laptop with me on vacation and to take emergency calls while on vacation. And yes, I did have to log in a few times while on vacation and repair my database. That's my job. I was one of 13 people in the whole country that did this. And so that was one reason they sort of couldn't get rid of me, is because very few people in the country did what I did. And so that saved my job and saved my pension. So let's talk about the psychological aspects of financial independence. You know, people focus on cash and they focus on cash flow. And that's what you want to look at when you retire. What is going to be your cash flow? Now, you can have a high net worth, right? And we do measure our net worth. But a high net worth is not cash flow. A person can have $1 million, $2 million, and have $1,000 in their checking account because all of their money is invested. And so what I'm doing with my rental properties is I'm increasing my cash flow over time. As rents go up each year, and as my renters pay down my mortgage, that gives me more equity in my rentals that someday I could peel off some of that equity. And so all of that is going to give me more cash flow, which will allow me to do more of the things that I want to do in retirement. But as you all know, I have a very simple life and don't need a whole lot of money in retirement, which is why I'm trying to live on the $900 left over from my pension so that all of my rental income and all of my teaching income can go into the things that I want to do in the future. As I mentioned earlier, like traveling to Europe and that kind of thing. Oh, thank you to Fam Adventures. See, they do a lot of cruises, and so I watch their channel to learn how to go on cruises, because someday I'm going to have the money to go on cruises. And that's what I was going to mention, and I forgot to mention, is I am watching retirement channels. And I did an interview on Real Retirees Uncut, and I'm doing another interview. I'll make a community post about this. I'm doing another interview, I believe next week, on another retirement channel where this guy interviews retirees. And I just found his channel. So I'm watching a lot more channels of people who are retired and are interviewed about when they take Social Security and those sorts of things. So what you want to do is you want to look at your money as like a freedom generating machine. As you're saving money and preparing your cash flow, whether you're getting money from Social Security or whether you're going to pull from your investment accounts or whether you're going to pull from your rental cash flow, however you're going to do that, that money is your freedom generating machine. And that's the way you want to look at it. It's not about net worth, because you could have a low net worth but high cash flow. You could have a high net worth and low cash flow where you can't retire. Yeah, you've got millions and millions of dollars, but you can't touch it because let's just say you're a 401k millionaire and you're only 50 years old. Well, you can't touch it. Right now, you could do the rule of 55. If you quit your job after 55, then you could touch your 401k without that 10% penalty, just in case you didn't know about the rule of 55. All of these different things I've learned watching various different YouTube videos. So watch my channel so you can learn useless knowledge like this. So the second thing to think about is the process over the outcome. So you want to enjoy the journey. For me, I made it a game. When I was saving and maxing out my 401k, which is a TSP with the federal government, when I was maxing out my TSP, the last 3 years that I was working there, basically I had increased my teaching income to match my federal government income. So I said, let me see if I can live without my federal government income. And I did that for 3 years. So when the straw broke the camel's back and I put in my resignation notice and then put in for a delayed retirement, I knew that I did not need that paycheck. So for that year and a half before I got my pension, I lived on my teaching income and I paid full health care. So, but I also knew it's only $8,000 out of all of the money that I made teaching. So I knew that I could make it to 60 years old to get my pension. Now I'm trying to make it to 66 and a half to get my Social Security. So I'm playing another game now where it's the process of living off the cash flow that I have. Once I get Social Security, my Social Security will be more than my pension. So in short, I'm doubling my pension when I get to Social Security. So again, I have to make it another 2.5 years. At that time, I made it 3 years, and then I retired early. So be prepared that this is not just a path straight up. You're going to have setbacks, you're going to have market downturns, you are going to have renters trashing your property. You know, I just talked to a friend just before this live who is selling a rental property because renters trashed his rental property. And he said, I don't want to deal with this. So it's not for everybody. Now, he may buy another rental in the future, he said. But my point is that sometimes there are downturns. You know, I have had downturns in various different parts of my life, like a bank wouldn't give me a loan on rental properties. That's a downturn. See, the first time that happened was a couple of years ago. I had never been denied a loan on rental properties. And so I took it personally. It was when interest rates were going up and banks were stopping loaning money. And I'm still buying. I'm buying and I'm buying and I'm buying. And they said, sorry, Daryl, you bought too much and you don't have enough cash flow from your rentals to even cover the mortgage, the insurance, and property taxes. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, but I have teaching income and I have pension income. I have all this stuff that will all cover this and float this until it becomes profitable. But the banks didn't look at it that way. So I got denied for a loan, and I took it personally as I am a bad person. That's why they didn't loan me the money, and it was just business. And so this year, I didn't buy anything for like 2 years. This year, I started buying again, and I'm buying and buying because I'm addicted to buying real estate. So I'm buying and buying and buying, and then a bank turns me down again. And somebody says, Daryl, go to another bank and try it over there. I never thought to go to another bank. I didn't think of that 2 years ago. So I went to another bank and got the loan. So there are going to be downturns, is what I'm saying. It's not going to be a straight up process. So early retirement success isn't about the perfect investment. It's about building emotional resilience, adaptability, and clarity. Be clear on why you're doing what you're doing. And I'll take this back to me getting my PhD. One of the things that they told me, and I'll never forget this because it's a great life lesson. Somebody told me, they said, pick a topic for your PhD studies where you have to go in and create new knowledge. That's what PhD is. You're creating something new, doing research on something that's never been researched before. The person said, pick a topic that you're super passionate about, because when the going gets tough, and it will get tough, you need to have that passion and that why to fight your way through it. And getting a PhD, I had to fight my way through a bunch of setbacks. So if you're going for fire, when times get tough and your investments go down, or you don't have enough money to save as much as you wished you had put aside in savings, just remember the end goal of why you're doing it. And always be investing, always be buying, no matter what. Whether the market's up, the market's down, always be buying. At least that's my philosophy, and that's what I do, right? So you want to, the next thing we're going to talk about is when you retire. You've got your financial independence, you retire, you no longer have your job title. You want to design your days to be fulfilling. Some people say, and this is not my experience, they say, well, I got retired and then I was bored. I've never been bored in retirement. I've never wanted to go back to work. I've heard people on YouTube say they want to go back to work after retirement. What's even worse, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, people who are forced to go back to work after retiring. I don't ever want to be forced to go back to work after retirement. So I live below my means. I have more money coming in than I spend. That means I'll never ever have to go back to work. And so for me, that's a big deal. So you want to proactively have planning, and a meaningful life. And what that means is pick up your passions in retirement. For me, it's community service. I love doing community service. Q brought up something on a video that I did a year or two ago, and I need to give a quick update on that. Last Saturday, I was in my town at my local library, and I did what we called a year ago Budget Bros, right? Because there was a lady on YouTube, she's not posting anymore, but she helped women in her community with their finances, and they were called Budget Babes. And I was watching her videos, and I told her, I commented one day and I said, I'm going to start that same thing in my community, and I'm going to call it Budget Bros. Well, it didn't quite work out that way, in that it's not just men. I will help anybody in my community. And my local library gives me a room free once a month to help out people in my community, because my local library says this is good community service. And I love it. I've been doing it for over a year now. Some months I show up and nobody shows up. Some months I show up and one person shows up. Some of the people are consistent and they say they want help with their finances and they come back. And other people say they want help with their finances. They really are enthusiastic and you sort of never hear from them again. So that's just how it's gone. But lately, over the last couple of months, I've had consistent people, and this past Saturday, I had 4 people, which is really good. So I had a young couple that had 2 or 3 children. I think they have 2 children. And they want to get their finances on track as a young, newly married couple. Another lady is getting married this month, and her husband are going to combine finances. And so she wants to get her financial life in order because his financial life is already in order. Another lady is a friend of hers. So one friend told another friend that I was doing this at the local library, and they brought a friend. And they have other friends that couldn't make it. So I said, bring your other friends next month. So that's the update on me doing community service, teaching financial literacy in the community where I live and where I have rental properties. So I have to give back to my community. The other thing that I'm looking forward to doing is feeding the homeless. I did that before a year ago and a couple of years, and since I moved to this town. However, I have not done it, let's say in the past year, and that I need to get back to doing. So you have your passions. My other passion, as you can tell, is YouTube. So everybody here knows that when I get monetized, that money will go to the homeless. I live below my means, so I do not need YouTube income. And this was just something very scary for me to start. And so when I decided to start a YouTube channel, I said to myself, we are not here to make a profit. We are here to do something for our community, which gave me the passion to start again. And so my AC just went off, so hopefully my voice is clearer now. But having the passion of helping the homeless kept me going when I wanted to quit YouTube. Because my YouTube channel didn't take off for a good 6 months, 8 months, or a year. Because I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't have any community like the Source or the Locked In Network. I didn't have any community whatsoever. I didn't even know those things existed. Now my channel is starting to creep up a little bit. and I'm starting to get a little bit more exposure. But the passion of helping the homeless has kept me going. So, freedom without purpose can feel like a cage without bars, right? You have your freedom, you have your financial freedom, but you have nothing to do all day. You don't want to travel. My friend Tiger on Fire, he and his wife bought an RV. Well, it's not really an RV, it's an overlander. Difference. There's a difference. But they can go and camp out all over the country. And that's what they're going to do in retirement. They're selling their house and they're out of here. Everybody has to have a plan for what they're going to do in retirement. And so I have made it through 30 minutes of this live, and we're only on topic number 2. So let's talk about shifting from accumulating wealth, which is what I do and what I talk about a lot on this channel. Because I came from being homeless and having nothing. I didn't even have $2 in my pocket, to accumulating wealth. And that took a lot of years. Rebuilding my credit took a lot of years because I had every card declined. I had a car in repossession. I started from the bottom. And so that's what I talk to people about. You don't have to start and go down as far as I went. You could start from where you are with your job and your whatever you have, your employer match. Start there. Because the big misconception about fire is it's all about the money. And I was doing fire before I even knew what fire was. All I knew was that I hated my job. I had been demoted, so they took away a good chunk of my pay, and I needed to make that money up. And that's what I did. I went out and I got a second job. Immediately when they said some people are going to get demoted, I went out and got a second job. I wasn't even waiting for the demotion. I had my resume out there, and I've been teaching in colleges ever since because I was a teaching assistant after getting my master's degree, and that was my second job. So anyway, let's talk about, because I want to make sure I get this, that in the chat, I want everybody to put, what does fulfillment look like for you? And it's not stopping work, it's starting a new chapter and purpose in life. So if you can, put in the chat, what does it look like for you for full fulfillment in your retirement? Would you travel? Would you take care of grandchildren? A lot of people do that, and that's wonderful that they move near where their children are so that they can assist with their grandchildren and spend more time with their grandchildren. So whatever that looks like for you, please put that in the chat. So I can tell you what fulfillment looks like for me. You know, I got in my car a couple of times now, and I've driven around the country and visited friends. And we're talking a month and a half at a time. I would drive around the country. So I drove from Alabama out to LA, and I stopped in Arizona and visited friends. I stopped in Palm Springs and visited friends. I went up to Northern California, where I'm from, and I saw my grandchildren, and I saw my aunts and uncles and relatives. Then I went to Utah and met a YouTuber from Utah that I had been watching her channel. She was a millionaire by the time she was 40 and was able to retire early by the time she was 40. I went to Utah on my way to South Dakota and Wyoming. I did all of this for a month and a half. See, that's fulfillment for me, is getting out and being able to travel the country and just meet people, just have lunch with someone. So it's not that I have to go and stay at someone's home. No. However, I have made some lifelong friends throughout my travels. And so I've done this month and a half trip a couple of times. And so now I hope to have the money to fly and maybe rent a car. See, so, I've done it sort of, let's just say, on the cheap in the past, driving around the country for a year and a half, or a month and a half, rather. But keep in mind, I'm always thinking about my money. So when I'm driving around the country for a month and a half, I make sure that I stop and visit with people I loaned money to, so that part of my trip of visiting friends is a business trip. Always think about your taxes. Always be smart with spending your money. So let's talk about the freedom formula. Oh, so Tiger put in the chat, trying new things, seeing and experiencing the unknown without any boundaries. Free to do whatever, however I want. Being free, not forced to do something. I love that. I watch these channels where they interview people. Oh, sorry, Rod 12. If you type in fire, then it will put your channel in there. So if anybody types in fire, it will put your channel in there. See, Tiger did it. So just type the word fire and it'll put your channel and you can connect with other people. I love that part of promoting other people's YouTube channels, because this is not just about my YouTube channel. I want everyone to grow their YouTube channel and make as much money as you can possibly make on YouTube. So the freedom formula, it is time, health, and financial security. So Coach Mean Reen, she says health is wealth. And I believe that, which is why I try to eat better and try to walk like Q does with Sophie. Now she's the one who got me walking. Now I'm out walking with my dog more than I would walk my dog normally. And even when my dog isn't here, I'm out walking every day. Because I'll see a video from Q and I'll go, Daryl, you need to get out and walk. So that was not me before. And the time freedom, that is the happiest part of my retirement and retiring early, is I have time freedom. And when you think about fire, you're not just accumulating money to spend, you're buying time freedom. And we've talked about the simple math behind retirement. The more you save, the less you have to work. So if you have a high savings rate, you're buying your time freedom faster. And so I have a high savings rate before I retired, but I retired with very little money in my retirement account. So I've been building wealth in retirement. So I still have a high savings rate in retirement, because not that I'm buying freedom from not having to work, I'm buying future freedom to do the things that I want to do in the future. When my money starts making money, it will pay for my travels on cruises. Like the Fam Adventures, they go on cruises all the time. I don't know how they do it. That's not my thing. That's not my business to know how they do it. I know that I need to have more money before I can start living the life that they're living. But I'm watching their channel to learn good cruise ships to go on, good restaurants to go on at the cruise ship, and good destinations to go to. So in my future, if I want to fly to Aruba just for a week, I can do that. If I want to go to, I've already been to Belize, but if I want to go back to Belize, I could just go, right? Can I do that today? Maybe. But will I be able to do that in 5 years? Absolutely. And I will be able to go anytime, anywhere I want to go, because my assets are going to pay for my travel liability. And then we talk, and that goes into the financial security. If I can build up enough assets with enough cash flow, and I'm going to show you this, which I had in a community post, but I got it back here again, that where I did this calculator for Northwestern Mutual, this is not the one for life expectancy, which says I'm going to live until I'm 99, meaning I got a lot of money to spend between now and 99. I'm spending every bit of that Social Security. Even though I'm going to invest all of my Social Security in the stock market, I'm going to let the stock market grow my money and then spend that growth. See, that's how you accumulate wealth. And that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, everything that I get from Social Security, I'm spending that. I'm just going to let the stock market double my money, and then I'll spend the money, half of it that was doubled. So, true wealth is not about your portfolio balance. It's not about my net worth. It's about the quality of the hours in my day. So when Q is out walking Sophie, right, that is quality time. And you can't buy that. Wealth is something you can't buy. When I'm at my house and I'm picking up sticks in my yard, you can't buy that. And I put them in my burn barrel and I start this big old fire in my backyard. You can't buy that. Riding my motorcycle to raise money for charity for a baby that's in the hospital, you can't buy that. So don't think about, well, I have to have X number of dollars before I can retire. What you want is to have quality of life. And that's what makes the why worth it. So, we talked about fulfillment, and I hope that everybody put in the chat, well, Kathy from Cronson Family Coast Fi is here. I think, Kathy, this is the first time that I've seen you on a live. I assumed you were at work. So, Kathy, type fire in the chat so everyone can come to your channel. I never give Kathy credit, but Kathy is the person that turned me on to OBS, which is how I do my monthly updates. And it's free software, but she's the one that turned me on to it, and then she taught me how to use it. So everybody, please go over to Kathy. Her and her husband are going to retire early, and they're on their way so that she can become a stay-at-home mom. And this is part of that fulfillment that I talked about, is have your own why for fire. And don't just say, well, I just want to quit my job, like me, right? I had a toxic job, but I prepared for 3 years before I pulled the ripcord. Kathy and her husband are preparing years in advance before they can pull the ripcord. And what they're doing, I talked about my living on my teaching income for 3 years before I quit my job and retired early. Kathy and her husband are doing the same thing. They are trying, and they're just starting all this, so I don't want to tell all of her story, but they are attempting to live on one income so that when she decides to be a stay-at-home mom, they will know we can live on one income. So prepare for your retirement. Don't just say, well, that's it, I'm out. Now, of course, if you have millions and millions of dollars, you could say, yeah, I'm out. But most of us don't. I had 300,000 and I said, I'm out. But I had the cash flow. And cash flow is king. I'm just going to say that. So I watch Kathy, and I've been watching her for a few years now, her and her husband. One, because she's frugal and I'm frugal, right? And we really vibe on our frugality, and my frugality helps me live on so little that my money grows so much. So I don't have to have a high income, but I do have to have expendable income, right? I have more coming in than what I spend, and then I invest it. So, Coach Mean Reen says health is wealth. My catchphrase is spend less, invest the rest. And Kathy and her husband, they are super frugal. I mean, I love it. I love it. They really motivate me. Now I'm off on a tangent here. But that's what I do in these lives. And today's live is just all over the place. So, because I didn't know if my puppy was going to let us get through this live, but he's being fabulous, which he is so precious. He is so precious. When I worry about him interrupting me with something, he doesn't. It's like he knows. It's just like he knows. He's just precious. So, so that's what you want to do is, let's see, ask yourself, this is for the audience here, what are you really trying to buy with the money, right? Is it security or is it significance? And I just put this post out there that somebody said, if you're buying stuff for show, you're always going to have low cash flow. And I think that we just started buffering. Oh, we're back. I was buffering for a minute, I saw there, and it didn't keep buffering. So I'm going to keep going because we only have 15 minutes left. And where I am, the Wi-Fi does not work for lives. So I've been using my cell phone for my lives the last few weeks, and it's been working for the whole hour, although it just buffered. So hopefully we get through the next 15 minutes of this. And so we talked about shedding your professional identity, right? And just really becoming a different person and not thinking that you have to have whatever your job title was. You know, my job title, as I said, was systems administrator. So I'm a retired IT guy, you know, and I love different IT things. But that is not who I was. You know, who I am today is a person serving their community. That's it. That's just who I am. Serving food to the homeless, helping people with their finances in my community, hopefully helping people with their finances on YouTube. You know, by not only passing on my experience, both my good experiences and the mistakes that I've made with my finances. Because there's been so many mistakes that I've made with my finances, and yet I'm still financially free and retired early. So if I can do it after all the mistakes I've made just in life, anybody can do it. And that's my story. You know, I tell my college students, if I can get a PhD, any of you can get a PhD. Because I spent 18 years in college to get my PhD, starting at 35 and ending in my 50s. So you're never too old, right? You're never, ever too old. So that's my point. If your retirement is, I'm going to go back to school. A lot of people do that in retirement. Whatever your why is, it's not about the money. It's about you having a fulfilling life and doing whatever it is that you want to do. So I'm going to check the chat here. And Rod R says frugality works well for him. I love frugal people. I do. Because, you know, at a time when I came out of the homeless shelter, I had to be frugal. I mean, just to survive. Just to survive. I had to pay back child support. I had all kinds of issues that I had gotten myself into. So I had no choice. Now that I'm living below my means, I know how to be frugal. See, when I was demoted at work and they cut my pay, and I had a rental property, plus I had a condo, and I said, I am not going to lose my one rental property that I have. I'm not going to lose that behind not having money. I became frugal real quick. And I went right back to, Daryl, you used to be homeless, used to not have any money, you know how to do this. And I kept that rental. And now I have a bunch more rentals, but I kept that rental. And actually I sold it now, but at the time I kept that one rental until I could buy more rentals. So that's my life story. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've had a lot of back steps, you know, one step forward, two steps back. And again, if I can find financial freedom, anybody out here can find financial freedom. Spend less, invest the rest. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about here, because we're going to get out of here in a little bit, and hopefully no more buffering, is the scarcity versus abundance, right? I have had a scarcity mentality, which caused me to be frugal. But when you're coming out of being homeless, you have that scarcity mentality. And my whole goal when I came out of the homeless shelter was, do not become homeless and do not go to jail. Because the child support people, I went to court and they said if you don't make a payment out of your next paycheck, you're going to jail. Well, I had to start making those payments, and I've never been to jail. So the point is, I made the payments, but early on, I had that scarcity mentality where I had to take every penny from 2 jobs working 7 days a week and either give it to my landlord because I was about to be evicted, or give it to the child support people because they were threatening to throw me in jail. Scarcity mindset. Well, now I'm in an abundance mindset where I live on less than what I make. And I make sure. That's why I'm trying to live on just the $900 left over after my house expenses from my pension every month. And that's why I'm now showing that every month and becoming accountable to you all, because I'm spending less, investing the rest. So if and when I have more cash flow from my rentals, it will get invested. It may get invested to pay off rentals, which will increase the cash flow. See, I'm trying to snowball my cash flow right now. And that's the mental shift that I'm doing to go from scarcity to abundance. You know, I worried for many, many years. This was just, it's a psychological thing in my head. It said, if you don't work and save, work and save, work and save, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 5 jobs, you're going to become homeless again. And a friend of mine said to me, Daryl, you are not going to ever be homeless again. But it took a while, many, many years, for that to sink in, that I have enough assets now that I will never be homeless again. So I can go through all my assets, and I am not going to be homeless again. And that's why I don't have a lot of leverage on my real estate. I own 50%. That's how much I own, and that's how much I owe. So even if the market goes down 50%, or think of it this way, if I sold half of my rentals, I could pay off the other half and be debt free. So all of those are options on the table if I ever choose to do them. Develop confident budgeting and enjoy your hard-earned freedom. When you retire early, enjoy life. You know, I was watching, like I said, I'm watching all these retirement channels, and I found this new one that I'm going to be interviewed on next week. But I was watching some of the people that he interviewed, and this guy got cancer after he retired. Now, he worked for a lot of years for a company, actually a utility, and so he had his pension, he had a great retirement, and then his health went bad. However, he's now recovering from the cancer. But my point is, enjoy life, retire early, and enjoy life while you're young. Please do not wait until you're in your 70s and say, well, now I'm going to enjoy life. Well, stuff starts going. My hip is starting to go, my knee messes with me every once in a while, and I'm only in my mid-60s. Well, I'm going to start running around the world before I'm 70, so that I get out there and do like the other people do and take cruise ships. Okay, I'll tell y'all, one of my dreams is to travel on a cruise ship. They have a cruise ship that travels the entire world, right? And I can't remember if it's $60,000. I can't remember. But it's something like that, to travel the world on this one cruise ship, and it just goes around the whole world. That's a dream. That's a dream. Will I ever do it? Probably. I can tell you that. You know, sometimes when I have dreams, I have to make a dream come true. Another one is a safari in Africa. And I'm going to say this, is going to sound kind of weird. It's only $10,000 a person, right? Now, having said that, I say only $10,000 because that cruise around the world is a lot more than $10,000 a person. But I have to work my way up to, can I spend $2,000 to fly to Hawaii, right? I'm going to Hawaii in January. I'm going to Hawaii in January. And a friend of mine has timeshare. My friend has a timeshare. So I'm going to this luxury resort on Maui, and I'm going to meet another YouTuber that lives over in Maui, and that's my dream. That's my dream. I've never been to Hawaii, and I am all about living my dreams in retirement. And that's all I can afford this time. So I've got to build up my wealth more than I could afford the safari in Africa. I've got to build up my wealth more, then I can afford that cruise ship that goes around the world. It's all about your dreams. It's all about your dreams. And you might say, well, how does this guy go from homeless to wanting to cruise around the world? Because I'm blessed. That's the only way I can explain any of this, is because I'm blessed. So you have to trust the math, right? I know how to increase my cash flow. And so as we all know, and as my friend T says, hi Regina. Regina is here from Simply Fundamental. And again, of course she's done retirement right. She's going to retire in 2026. So she's going to join this retirement club. And so, because I've done my stuff right, and my friend T says this, she says, personal finance is personal. Trust your own math that you know where your cash flow is coming from. For me, I have that plan of getting Social Security and still teaching, right? Think about this. If I take that cruise around the world, while on that cruise ship, I could teach 1 or 2 classes. I wouldn't have to teach a lot while on that cruise ship to help pay for that cruise. Yet Regina says 2026 is getting closer. It's going to come so fast, Regina, that you're gonna, and we've got some channels for you to be interviewed on. I got a couple of channels. I'm going to be interviewed, I think, on Monday or Tuesday, maybe Tuesday, on a channel, this other retirement channel. So we're going to get Regina on the retirement channel circuit as soon as she retires. And then Kathy from the Cronson family, when she retires early to be a stay-at-home mom, and we're talking really early, she's going to retire very, very young. We're going to get her on the early retirement interview circuit. I didn't retire as early as some of these folks, but 58 and a half was the soonest I could do it. So that's it. We're trusting our math. We talk about going from the scarcity mindset. Oh, well, Tiger, we don't know how young. I think her and her husband are in their 30s. So I would be surprised. I would be surprised if she didn't retire before she was 40. I'd be surprised, just because they are so focused. When you're focused on your goal, and if early retirement is your goal, and you're focused on that whatever you're focused on expands. And so I've been focused on building wealth, and now I can start to take my foot off the gas and let my money make money. And that was always my goal, was what Robert Kiyosaki said, let your assets pay for your liabilities. That was always my goal. Build up enough assets where I could take my foot off the gas and let the assets work. I've said this before. My mother had a boyfriend when I was young, and he said, some people get up and they put their pants on and they go to work. He said, I get up, I put my money out there and let it go to work. That's where I'm getting to. That's where I'm getting to. Am I there yet? No. But I'm close. I'm getting there. So you have to trust your plan, whatever your plan is. I mean, Kathy and her husband have a plan. Regina has a plan. My friend Julie at Happy on Monday, she had a plan. She paid off her house before she retired. Have your own plan and do your own plan. You don't do my plan. I don't do your plan. I have not paid off my house. However, my house is at 0% interest because I pay extra on my mortgage and I trust my math. So I like 0% interest on a house. I like that. That's part of my fun in retirement. That's part of my fun. And so we are almost hitting the hour here. And so what I want to do is I want to tell you guys, I have this in a community post where it's a Northwestern Mutual retirement planning, retirement calculator. And I'll put this in the description. And Regina is saying that she could have retired earlier, but she made commitments. So she has that integrity and honor to her employer that she committed to staying for a certain amount of time because they love her so much. They asked her, please stay. And so she did. So that's what I like about Regina. She has that kind of integrity, and you can feel it through her videos. Regina, I hope you typed fire in the chat so that everyone can come to your channel. I'm going a few seconds over here, but I want to tell you guys, I have this in a community chat where I did this calculator that says, when I get Social Security, I may need, now this is a couple of years from now, I may need $1,926 every month. Right now I'm trying to live on $900 a month. But this is saying in a couple of years, I may need $1,926 a month. But based on my assets, it says I'm going to have $9,327 a month coming in. I'll have an excess. This is just a guesstimate. This isn't anything, that's concrete. But it's a guesstimate that I'll have $7,000 a month extra in cash flow coming in a couple of years. So I think I can get on some cruise ships with $7,000 a month extra. Right? Not only that, will I pay off my home? Most likely. Because I'm getting to the point where I don't want payments. I just don't. I want to save up money, pay cash for a car, which I've never done. Another dream. I have so many dreams. I have so many dreams. So you guys are going to watch me live my dreams in retirement, and I'm going to watch you all live your dreams in retirement. And so with that, we are going to close this live because my lives they go for 1 hour. And because I know everybody has a busy life, so that's just me. You won't see me doing 1 hour, 2 hour, 5 hour lives. They just go for 1 hour and that's it. But they're every Friday consistently at 10:15 Central Standard Time. And so I will be back next Friday with another live talking about another topic. Maybe someone will give me an idea during the week. And that's where I get my topics. They just sort of come up during the week. And so I'm going to leave you with this quote, is you didn't save money to hoard it. You saved it to live. Remember, never let your past determine your future. See you all next week. Have a great weekend and a great rest of your week. Thank you all. Bye.